This is Ion Hong Kong with Key.
And this is Harminder, and we'll be discussing the top news for the week involving Hong Kong and China.
Hello, welcome to the, I don't even remember which episode we are on, but I think it's 41st episode of Ion Hong Kong. And today we have a guest, and Chris.
Hello.
Chris is a
Pupil barrister.
pupil barrister, and which means, what is that? Why are you pupil?
Meaning I'm a barrister under training. I'm not yet a barrister, but I will become a barrister once I fulfill all the requirement, which is undergone the so-called 1 year of training under a practicing barristers, usually 4 of them.
Okay.
And then I would fully certify as a barrister.
Okay. So,
I'm halfway through now, so there will be another 6 months to go.
oh, that's fantastic. So recently, there is a TV drama on TVB, and talking about the life of a barrister. Are they correct, or are they inaccurate?
Well, I only had the opportunity to watch 2 episodes, the first 2. I was pretty impressed because largely correct, I would say. Of course, there are things they are dramatized.
Okay.
But largely they are quite depicting the kind of life a barrister or solicitor are going through on a day-to-day basis.
I see. I as I understand that you're a mature student, and before, what did you do?
Well, I work in the IT industry for, I won't tell you how many years, but that's quite a few years before I decided to change field.
Why you make such a decision?
Well, it is a very risky decision because
Indeed.
Nowadays, barrister is definitely not the kind of privilege, a profession as we used to think they are, but they struggle to make a living. But
Really?
they do, yes.
Why?
Because
when we watch TV, that is always trying to portray that the life of a barrister is like going to the Lam Kwai Von and having a
maybe
drink.
1 or 3 hours of 100 will actually endow in the kind of lifestyle as depicting in those TV soap opera.
Right.
But other than that, most barristers today, they are to begin with, they are self-employed. And they have to pay rent, all the overheads and expenses. So you must have enough business, in order to meet all the ends. So, and for young barristers, it become more difficult because of all sort of reasons. We just don't have enough cases.
What about the rent? How much is the rent? Because we're always hearing that the rent in Hong Kong is quite crazy. So
it is.
What is the rent for the barrister to? I mean, usually you guys share the office or chambers.
Yeah.
Then it should be okay to some people who make more than they should contribute more, right?
Well, the tricky thing is usually the chambers, they are in Admiralty, in Central area. You're not going to have a chambers in Central Pole as in the TV.
Mong Kok,
I know, but that's not the truth. In reality, to facilitate your work, because most courts we're talking about like in Wan Chai or in Admiralty, even though they are magistrate, but solicitors firms are usually in Central. So or traditionally, chambers will be in Central area, and the rents are just crazy. For the junior, we're talking about like 15, 20 grand a month, to start with.
That's quite a lot.
That's quite a lot, unless you are making, a good income. Otherwise, you're going to suffer as a barrister.
Yeah, you probably you really have to pay more than you earn. Would it be the case?
I think that is definitely the case. At least for the first, a year or 2. If you're lucky, you might, break even. Say, at the end of 2 years, and then you start to pick up your practice.
Right.
So first 2 years or even 3 years will be the period that you will suffer.
As I remember, when I was a barrister, I chose to be a door tenant. And what about the situation as a door tenant?
You still can be a door tenant, but there are advantages as well as disadvantages as a door tenant. But if you're really devoted and you really want to be successful, I would suggest, just get yourself a chambers. so that you will, at least you are more disciplined. You go back because since you already paid the rent, you go back to chambers no matter what, and you would learn, from your chambermates. You would actually more, have more opportunity to get business.
Right.
Door tenant, I would say, is for those who are more experienced or already established some sort of network, and they will get business. It doesn't matter where they are. So that's at least in my humble opinion. Door tenant is not the thing we are. We suggest, for junior barristers. But even for door tenants, we're talking about, $8,000, 10 grand. So it won't make much difference.
For getting nothing, right? No room, no service.
And you can get a room if nobody else is using that conference room, for example.
I see. So what area of practice you would like to practice in the future?
Well, that goes back to the earlier question that you asked me, what makes me, change field. So basically, after working for some years in the IT industry, I started doing some volunteering work for mainly for the Pan Democrats.
I see.
So and I thought, a knowledge in law is definitely helpful and facilitate the kind of work that I'm doing. So that's how I, started to pick up, law, as a subject matter. And after a few years, as the situation in Hong Kong deteriorate, I started to ponder this idea, whether it makes sense, for me to do something completely different. But in this something, I can actually, I'm passionate and I know I can do something that I will be a much happier person. With the support, I was very lucky to have my wife, my family to support me. So I decided, I will, if, I can, if I do well, in my legal studies, and after some calculation, carefully, planned in terms of financing, then we just, we quit our job. Actually, my wife quit her job, so that I can, as a family, we went to London and spent a year there.
Oh, that's great.
So I can, I can complete a master's in laws in human rights, and that's the area that I would like to focus on in the future.
I see. So, I mean, we also heard that people they have to do a PCLL before you get qualified, before you can, go to the law firm or be a pupil barrister. But is it still very difficult to get into a PCLL?
It's even more
course?
difficult these days.
Why?
It's very competitive.
Now, they have before, 10 years ago, and not 10 years, 20 years ago when I was a law student.
Oh, it's only 10 years ago.
Only Hong Kong U and City U, but now they have more. They have one Chinese U as well.
If I remember correctly, there are 600, places per year. But we are also talking about, a increasing numbers of students from all over the world.
Right.
Okay. So the competition is very intense.
I see.
Just to give you an idea, the minimum requirement to get into PCLL is, I think lower second class, on paper.
Okay.
But nowadays, unless you are, first class honor,
no way.
You won't say I will be guaranteed a place. If you are only upper second class, you better get a very good upper second class. Otherwise, there's no way you will, be guaranteed a place.
Oh my God!
Yes,
I'm so lucky and I still want to go.
It's pretty, competitive.
Is it because there are more places for law students that? I mean, like at Hong Kong U or City U and CU, there are quite a lot of law undergraduate students.
We have a lot of local law graduates, but we also have graduates from other places, other jurisdiction.
Right.
We are not just talking about common law jurisdiction. We also have competitors coming from mainland.
But they're studying civil law. How could they, go into?
Usually, they will come to Hong Kong and study for a JD.
Right.
Okay, and via that, our qualification, we are seeing more, mainland students. Many of them are, really outstanding,
right.
And to compete against, local students.
Since nowadays there are probably like 600 graduates every year, so or from the PCLL course. What about the job market in the legal field now? I mean, apart from being a barrister, most people would choose to be a solicitor. What about the job market in the solicitor field? Would everybody get a job there?
I don't actually have the numbers. I don't have the statistics, but
Okay.
out of my head I think it's as long as you get into PCLL,
Right.
you don't need to worry about whether you will get a offer. The only difference will be the kind of firms that give you the offer.
True.
Okay, if you're really good, you get an offer from a city firm or large international firms. Otherwise, you would definitely get an offer to become a solicitor.
So
I don't
it
think
is-
that would be an issue.
So would you say that it is still true to study law in order to get at least you get a job? You wouldn't be unemployed after you graduate.
Yes, I would say more or less, that's the situation, but not necessarily, meaning the income is
Right.
good compared to maybe other, say, IBAN,
What about the average income for being a solicitor as a trainee nowadays?
for trainee.
Yeah.
Well, again, all this information I'm giving you is hearsays, all right?
Okay. Not admissible.
So
This is not court, so-
for local firms, they are quite low. I think
Like-
anywhere between $8,000 to maybe 12, 13 grand
Okay.
a month. But for international firm, it could be maybe 30,000 to 50,000, depends on the firm.
It's pretty much the
Pretty
same
good.
like the year when I graduated. It didn't really improve a lot.
No, inflation doesn't
Yeah.
apply on wages.
That's quite funny though, because most of my friends now they are partners or they are already quite senior in a law firm. They told me
Right.
that because most pupils or most students from the law faculty they got a second upper usually, so they have to pay more for the trainee. Now, even for the local firm, they have to pay, according to one of my friends, he said that they have to pay like 20,000 a month for the training, even they are local firm, because the students nowadays are better than those 10 years ago. Is it
Wow.
true? Is it still the case?
To be honest, I don't know about that. Yeah, but I would think that is probably the case.
I see. I see. So cool. I also heard that you have some participation with the Pandem. What exactly you were doing helping the democracy in Hong Kong?
Well, that sounds like a big topic, but I was like, as a small potato, I just did what I could. So this, mini organization that I joined some years ago is called Power of Democracy.
Right.
So the main task this organization does is to coordinate
Right.
between various parties during elections.
Okay.
Okay, so in a way to minimize conflict.
Okay.
All right. So because usually we see, there are few candidates competing against a seat.
Right.
So we like to have these people, sit down and talk to each other, and see whether we can resolve the conflict. That's one thing they do. We're also doing some work on the, education and promotion of democracy in Hong Kong.
I see.
But we didn't do well enough, I would say,
Okay.
and this umbrella movement is really, enlightening. And we see now a lot more people are in this camp, and we have much more support. And we learn from this, younger generation.
Right.
And so from there, I see some hope.
So, and are you, since the district council elections coming, is this organization have anything to do with the coming election?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I also heard from the news that there are some netizens organizing a political group to run for the district council election. Have you heard of that?
I did. Yes. I think there are some conversations going on.
I see.
Yes.
So there are more. What about the
And they are much, welcome, to do so, actually.
Cool.
Yes. Yeah.
So what about the lawyers? Are they more active after the umbrella movement?
I'm only a lawyer to be, but I would say yes. Based on my knowledge,
I
right?
see.
There's a lot of even for those lawyers from a city firm, they usually they are indifferent.
Right.
Okay, they will say, okay, of course I support the value of democracy, human rights and all that, but usually they do nothing about it. But this umbrella movement really, just somehow, awaken these people, and they all just come out and I think contribute their share.
There is one lawyer group quite loud these days, I would say. That is the Progressive Lawyer Group.
Yes.
And I know that you are a member of that
Yes,
group.
I am.
And what do you think about the group? What are they doing? Can you tell us something about the Progressive Lawyer Group? What is their aim?
Well, as an ordinary member of the group, I can only share some observations that I have from, previous engagement with these, wonderful people. I think, well, basically education, awareness are the things that they try to do, because we see there are still a lot of people, the general public are still indifferent.
Right.
To the idea, or if not against the idea of universal suffrage.
I see.
So lawyers, they do have a role, in educating these people. Sometimes even to those people who are, so-called opponents to the idea of democracy. And also, I think that's an important role that lawyers can play, is they provide bullets. Via legal analysis, by identifying issues in government policies. If they do something wrong, we don't take it for granted. We study and we try to provide law, using law as a weapon, and help the general public to understand the issue. And only an informed general public, okay, that can make an informed decision whether they want to support or not.
I see.
So in that sense, we are information provider, okay, but from a legal perspective.
How did you communicate this to the local public? Because usually lawyers quite distant to the general public, and how would you try to reach out to these I can't say ordinary people, the people in the community?
There are quite a few things that I see they are doing, which I think is pretty amazing. For one thing, we already, held pretty successfully, a couple street promotions.
Okay.
One in Shaki Mei and the other in Sha Tin.
Right.
And via this, street promotion, you actually talk to, you talk to those people. Some, of course, they support us, but some they do not.
Okay.
And there was, I think, great opportunities for us to understand, what the general public thinks about, this, what we think important.
What are their responses from these from the citizens when they see the lawyer group on the street and try to promote democracy? Are they would they hostile, or would they be intimidated by the lawyer, or they feel welcome to the lawyer to go down to the street and explain things to them?
My personal experience is whether they support the idea of universal suffrage, whether they support the so-called 831 decision or not, they welcome lawyers to actually to go all the way down to the community and talk to them, because I think this is the advantage of being a lawyer. They think you are more reasonable, and they would like to listen to your analysis.
I see.
And sometimes they love to debate with you.
Okay.
Okay, and very eager to express their point of view. Okay, and more often than not, they do not agree with what we are doing. Okay. But they will try to. This is why I object your idea, and then I think that's when we start talking, communicating. Right. Even though at the end of the day, I could not convince them. Neither can they convince us. Right. But we somehow the communication or understanding have been greatly improved.
I
So
see.
I think that's a good thing to do, and I think we should continue to do so.
Since we this week, in the past week, the Progressive Law Group also issued a joint statement with other progressive group like the
Yes.
teachers group and the doctors group. And it's something about the advertisement with the public interest because the
Yes.
government trying to promote their political idea through this announcement of with public interest. What is the deal here? What's happening? Why such a statement come out
Well,
from the group?
I think you may already knew that in Hong Kong, political efforts are illegal,
Right.
right? So, especially when we talk about broadcasting on TV or radio, okay, they're all unlawful. But here we see the government using this announcement of public interest as an excuse, okay, in a way forcing, the electronic media to air political efforts that are obviously biased, like
Right.
Pocket It First.
Okay.
So these are actually a way to promote, the government's proposal in supporting, the MPCSC decision. And this, we think is something that is not right. Okay, because.
When you say that is not right, then what is the purpose of the original purpose of having this
Because announcement of public interest is usually used to inform or educate the general public, like wash your hands after meal.
Okay.
So these are neutral, message that
Right.
that serve the purpose to inform, the general public on certain issues. It's perfectly okay for the government to encourage discussion or even debate, among the general public on this, political reform matter.
Right.
But it's not right for the government to only promote one side of the view
Right.
without, taking any other possibilities into account, that there are, different views in terms of this, political reform.
But what about the political party? They are not allowed to.
No,
Then is it not fair for them?
it's definitely not fair.
But at the same time, because if we allowed political advertisement on TV or in the media, would that actually? Are you guys trying to argue
No,
that?
I think that's another matter.
Okay.
So we are trying to identify, these wrongs done by the government, on the part of the government, but we are not saying, political efforts, should be allowed in Hong Kong. That's another matter.
I see.
Should be, openly discussed by the public,
I see.
and put into agenda if that's something that we want.
I see.
Because there are reasons, as in other jurisdictions, to disallow political efforts, because usually, only the rich and powerful will
Right.
be able to, to have their efforts on TV and radio, because these are very expensive.
So if that's allowed, then the DAB will have quite a lot of.
Oh, they will have no problem.
They have no
I'm
problem at
certain.
all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have no doubt about it.
I see. So apart from this kind of issue, what is this lawyer group, progressive lawyer group doing recently, and any other apart from the democracy, any other issues that you guys are will look
That's
into?
quite a few things going on. There are quite a few subgroups, in this, under the umbrella of PLG,
Right.
and each of them working on different issues. We see articles, coming out almost on a daily basis from
Right.
various media, communicating, the kind of message we want to get across to the general public. Sometimes, not all the time serious, okay? Sometimes can be quite entertaining.
I see.
Yeah.
I actually read an article that is quite a golden style. I mean, the golden forum style. And you guys, it seems that have quite a lot of different styles to
We try to be as earthy as possible.
not to be so distant. Because
No. Actually, many lawyers, that I encounter are very, just like, any of us, just ordinary people. And they have, all sort of, pain, they just feel the same, suffering or happiness as the rest of us do.
I see. That's quite interesting. Since the Progressive Life group now is quite, on quite a lot of media, and of course, most people also focusing on one guy of the spokesperson. What do you think about this? Is it a distraction to the group?
No, no, of course not. Yeah.
I'm talking about Wilson. Okay, I would name.
I know.
Yeah, it seems that like every time that like they talk about the Progressive Life group, like even Emily Lau, she said something like, "Oh, he's really handsome." And
it is.
so, do you think that it helps to promote the group, or it helps to promote the ideas of the group?
Well, in effect, it helps, right? Considering the practical, effect of this. But of course, I don't think that was, planned.
Okay.
Right. So, but nothing wrong about it, And Wilson, of course, he's a great leader, despite his good looking.
Okay. I mean, it's quite similar to during the umbrella movement. Quite a lot of people having this interesting discussion of he. And then people accusing that, because it's umbrella movement, and if you always also discussing about the he that would distract the public attention. But at the same time, what the student group said is that it can actually bring the issue to different people, because some people would like to know this kind of issue in another lighter way, but not very hardcore way to.
I agree with that. I agree with that, especially when the political climate, these days are rather depressing.
True. So it's quite refreshing.
It's refreshing, and and people in Hong Kong, we have this unique sense of humor, and this is how I think will greatly help us to sustain the movement, the spirit, and we can bring things forward.
Yeah, so
sense of humor is very important.
Are there any, apart from the male god, any goddess that the group should, promote? Because it is quite sexist just to promote the male god.
I agree with you.
Yeah, there should be one goddess, right?
Yeah, but I never hear any plans. But you never know.
True.
I do see, a lot of, lovely ladies, beautiful ladies in our group.
Okay, and coming to the end of the first part, and then we'll be back, and then we'll discuss the weekly news with Chris.